welcome to this day's edition of 3-Minute Warning.
The show where we take 5 of the hottest topics in all of sports, break them down in 3 minutes or less. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Medina. With me, as always, my good buddy, David Griffin.
We also have Stephen Fox up in the booth, our producer, the man making it happen. Say hi, Stephen.
What's up?
So we're going to get right into it today, talking about some NFL. The owners are down in Phoenix, I believe, talking about foosball.
Yes.
All these, we got, I think, like 23 proposed rule changes. Some of them are just ridiculous.
Get that 9-point play, please.
We got 9-point plays.
Play.
We got moving the, the extra point, everything up to like the 1-yard line. We got some craziness going on. But one of the big topics is the playoff expansion.
Yeah.
And expand the teams, possibly one more team per each division.
This is something that they've been talking about for a while, and I'm talking about the possibility of maybe even implementing that this season. It's not going to happen this year, but they're going to continue talking about it. Right now, we already have 12 teams set up. They're thinking about the possibility of maybe the 2 teams that get that first round bye. Maybe one of those teams would retain that, but then that other team would have to go down and play that first week in that divisional playoff. So that'd be interesting.
What cracks me up is that the owners are always like, well, we got to work out the logistics. We don't know how it's going to work. We don't want to mess with the college schedule. We got to figure out about marketing and about money. And I'm like, you guys are complaining about how much money you're going to make. Like, well, we just got to figure everything out, like sponsorship and how that's going to work.
It's a good problem to have.
I know, like, who's going to televise? It's like, oh, heaven forbid you're going to have everybody wanting to televise your sport. It's the most watched sport in this country. Is there such thing as too much football?
It depends. See,
talk about injuries,
and that's the thing.
Do like preseason that no one watches.
We're big.
No, people watch preseason. I like the preseason.
We're both big football fans, so it's like ideally we'd love to have football 365 days a year. Problem is, it's such a physical sport. You know what I mean? These guys are going to hurt themselves. Honestly, I think the system right now that they have in place is pretty good. I have no problem. I have no desire for an extra team.
Yeah, I don't know, extra team. The extra playoff games I think would be cool. Yeah. We'll have more playoffs, longer playoffs. I mean, it goes by so quickly, just like the NCAA tournament, everything just flies by. But a new rule that they're implementing is about the blackout policy, which is kind of this archaic thing that if the local stadium doesn't sell out, then you're not going to be able to see the games locally, which is just stupid.
And that's actually the strictest policy in all the sports. I mean, the NFL is really like hardcore with that. Like you said, if they don't sell out, you're not getting televised.
Which is crazy because, I mean, the NFL makes more money off television revenue, hundreds of millions of dollars a year, more than they do actually the fans going to the stadium. Absolutely. So I'm really happy that they got rid of this. So, I mean, I think it's a good thing, don't you?
No, I think it's so stupid. Like you said, it's so archaic. Yeah, get rid of it.
Another new thing is possibly having the Pro Bowl in Brazil in 2017. I mean, I don't know what they're thinking about. I mean, Brazil it's soccer, football. European
different kind of football.
Different kind of football, and on mixed martial arts. Well, UFC.
It's interesting because, first of all, they want to make it more desirable for the players to actually want to go. So Brazil would be the place to go. But like you said, it's football, soccer, and MMA. Those sports dominate. So the idea of wanting to go to Brazil. I mean, I know they're trying to take the sport to London and trying to increase the fan base down there, and they've been slowly doing a good job of that. But Brazil might be a little harder. Yeah,
London. I mean, my Bills are going to be playing in London. Buffalo, Jacksonville, excited for that game. But, I mean, when you have Manchester United and Chelsea playing on a Sunday morning and you have the chance to watch the Bills and the Jaguars, I assume the people in London are probably going to watch Chelsea, Man United.
Probably would.
I don't know. I mean, Goodell seems fixated on bringing a team to Europe or at least having some games in Europe. I don't know about that. We'll see. Going to be excited. We're going to go ahead and reset that clock, and we're going to go to the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about some Mo money.
Yep. ACC just making it rain right now.
Making it rain. $28 million in potential revenue because of their tournament winnings.
Yeah.
Each team gets a cut of the basically the TV deals. And the ACC has 5 teams, therefore they get the biggest cut.
As they should, the biggest piece of chicken.
How important is revenue and money in these postseason tournaments, both basketball and football?
Well, it's huge for these programs because, I mean, they need to make this money to keep, the programs going, to keep building them. That's why I like these bigger programs. Again, let's look at basketball. Teams like Kentucky, teams like Duke, they continue to succeed, and that's why they earn money so they can continue to expand their program.
We know in college football it's huge with the bowls. Bowls make a ton of money. Not only money for the individual team, but also money for the conference.
Yes.
The individual conferences get money based on how well their schools do. So, if you're an ACC fan or you're a Big East fan or Big Ten, when you see another school doing well, maybe you hate Michigan, but if they're doing well in the tournament or let's say the playoffs, you want them to do well because it brings money to the Big Ten.
Yep.
It brings more revenue. So how do the smaller teams do? How do the smaller teams deal with all this revenue that's coming in? Because I think in basketball, it works out better because of the way the sport is. But in football, like the smaller teams can't compete with Alabama and Florida State.
They can't compete, but it's good for those programs to play those games against those bigger teams because it does bring in a little bit more revenue for those teams and stuff. And there's always the possibility of like the upset. It won't happen, and not, at least in football, it's so rare. But in basketball, like you said, there is that small chance that that magical 16th seed, can make it all the way to the Final Four.
I mean, we love the Cinderella stories. Like we were saying earlier this week, is the Cinderella story hasn't happened in the NCAA tournament. These schools that are winning are some of the bigger schools, but it can happen. A George Mason can win. Butler wasn't always a top-tier team.
No, I mean, what was this, like almost 10 years ago now when they kind of rose to dominance?
Right, but it's weird, though, but in college football, again, less teams. I think we talked about 337 teams in Division I basketball, college basketball. Talking about college football, I believe it was like 128 teams. It's half, over half. So, but it's just the same teams every year.
Yeah,
you see the Bamas, Ohio State making a big name for itself, beating an SEC school, which is great. But now all these super conferences are forming.
Yes.
The SEC, I mean, you can't even call them the Big Ten. I mean, it's just like big. They call it, like, you see like the thing, it's just big because there's more than 10 schools.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, do you think there's a fair way to do this? Think maybe so they should cut some teams off? Put them in Division II?
I think at this point, I think as far as football is concerned, I mean, these conferences like the SEC can't continue to take teams because it's already getting pretty crowded enough as it is. As far as basketball is concerned, I like the fact that there are these small teams that can, like I said earlier, just can rise to prominence and, change like their whole future, their outcome and stuff. So I like that. So I think that's good.
All right, so we're going to just keep moving here, keep rolling fast today. We got more topics to talk about. We got Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Roy Halladay talking some smack.
Ooh.
To A-Rod, imagine that. Everybody's talking smack about A-Rod. Michael, you're the baseball expert here. I want to know why there's so much hate for A-Rod. All right, let's look at A-Rod for a second here.
Yeah.
He's a great player.
Yeah, he's a great player.
14 All-Star appearances.
Three-time MVP, I want to
say. Youngest player to reach 500 home runs. Youngest player to reach 600 home runs. Yeah. He's a good athlete.
That he is.
Admitted to using steroids, I think, from 2001, 2003, the Texas Rangers, because there was so much pressure. What am I going to do?
It's pressure.
I'm getting paid $200 million. I don't know what to do. I'm so scared, Why so much hate for A-Rod? Why does he deserve all this hate?
He kind of does. He's not known for being the sweetest individual in baseball. And the thing is, too, this is a guy you got to understand with the whole biogenesis incident and all that stuff. This is a guy that named the MLB, but not just the MLB, the Players Union in his lawsuit to help overturn that biogenesis suspension. It's one thing you want to go against MLB, you know what I mean? But you want to go up against the Players Union. These are supposed to be like your brothers in arms. These are the guys that had your back this whole entire time, and now you're going to burn that bridge? And then to turn it around, what was it, like about a month or so ago? He was like, what happened was, it's like you look like an idiot, So yeah, I could see that.
How about Hall of Fame chances?
Oh, good luck, man. If guys like McGuire, Sosa, Bonds aren't getting in, I don't see how A-Rod would.
Maybe when he's Pete Rose's age.
Maybe. Yeah.
Let's move on from all the A-Rod hate to some positive news. Talk about Monet Davis yesterday.
Monet, yeah. Look at her doing her thing.
Horrible tweet sent out by a baseball player from Pennsylvania, college player, who was subsequently kicked off of his team, ejected from his team because of said comment. Monet Davis was on ESPN yesterday. Very mature, the 13 or 14-year-old, just really mature. And let's talk about the interview a little bit. She forgives this guy. She's understanding of the comment. She said, "Look, he probably didn't mean what he said he meant." And she wrote a letter to the school asking for his reinstatement. That's crazy.
That's the thing. Again, the fact that she's 13 or 14 years old, and then she understands the gravity, how heavy something like this. She's like, "Look at this guy. He worked hard to get to where he's at, and he made a mistake." And I think he still deserves a second chance. That's huge on her part.
What do you think this means for Monet Davis as a career? I mean, she can't go. Well, I mean, I don't think she can go pro baseball necessarily. So I mean, what do you think? What are her options? She is a basketball player. Yeah,
she actually can play some ball. I mean, there's always WNBA, I suppose. But right now, I think she's just become bigger than sports itself. Like, people that don't really follow sports know Monet Davis. So, I mean, whatever she does, I mean, she's looking pretty good right now. She has a bright future.
Potential little movie deal. I mean, I hope hopefully maybe becomes more than just like a sports announcer. Maybe she'll get her own show. I mean, she's very entertaining, so young, so talented, and it's cool. That's such a great story.
It really is.
A lot of hate out there, a lot of trash talking, but it's nice to see some positivity out there in the world of sports. Going to move on. Next topic. Start that clock up again. Talk about some NCAA football. Florida State is seeking out Alabama for an early matchup next season. Going for the big dogs. Well, second big dogs. Ohio State right now is the top dogs. Alabama second place. Do you think Florida State, is this stupidity? We talk about stupidity on the show a lot. Some stupid moves out there. Or is this bravery? Is this a brave move on Florida State's part?
I'm going to say that it's a little bit of both.
Ooh.
A little bit of both. It's brave on one hand because it's like, look, after what happened last season with Florida State, you want to prove to the world that we're the real deal. You know what I mean? So you want to go up against the best. You don't want to go up against these powder puff schools that you're going to beat like 75 to like nothing or whatever. So I understand, but it's stupid because again, if you watched Florida State last year, they were pretty shaky. So do you really want to try to kick off your season going up against one of the biggest powerhouses in college football right now? I don't know.
What's interesting is Florida State, of the top 4 teams that made it in the playoffs, Florida State was the only team that was undefeated.
Yeah.
All the other teams at least lost one. But Florida State was almost last in the rankings in that top 4. So I think Jimbo realized that he needs to push the envelope. Because right now the ACC conference is not the strongest conference out there.
It's not. We're both ACC guys, but it's like it's interesting. It's kind of like if you watch like Premier League in English football. Premier League itself, a lot of great competition within the league. When you go outside, you go Champions League, it gets a little shaky.
Look as good. I mean, I think, Florida State has a lot to prove. Who is your school that you think you have the most to prove?
I'd have to say Florida State because, look, they won the national championship a couple years back. Last year with Jameis Winston. Famous Jameis. Didn't look quite as sharp. The whole team didn't look quite as sharp. Yes, they were undefeated, but almost every single one of those wins, they played from behind.
Yeah, they were comebacks.
They played from behind. They didn't have one single dominant win all last season. And then they get to their playoff game against Oregon and got exposed and just humiliated. So it's like now that Jameis is gone, these guys, like I said, we don't know who their starting quarterback is going to be. They have a lot to prove. So, yeah, definitely Florida State.
Yeah, for me, I want to see just the whole ACC conference in general. I think we really, because Mike and I are both ACC fans, I really want to see the ACC step up, win some more. SEC is beating us. The Pac-10, Big Ten, they're all looking better right now. The ACC really needs to bring it to that next level. I mean, look at college basketball. We talked about $28 million in revenue off the tournament. We have 5 teams in the in the NCAA tournament right now.
And
but
7 that went into it.
7 that went into it the most. But college football looking a little bit shaky, looking rough. How would you like to see the college football playoffs expansion? We have 4 teams now.
I'd love to
look at 8, 12, or
at least 2 more teams.
2 more.
Let's do at least 2 more. I think 6 is a good number. Because again, the college football season is considerably shorter than the NFL. So I think 2 more teams, keep it going quick. But that's probably the good number.
It's fun. It was kind of cool having the first year. I actually got to go to the Rose Bowl. I watched Florida State play Oregon. As a Florida State fan, it was both a joyous day and a horrible day. It was great to actually go to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, but it was awful because Florida State got whooped. So enough of that subject. We don't need to talk about Florida State getting whooped anymore, because that's just depressing. We're going to move on to some NASCAR.
Yeah.
Racing. Oh boy. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Michael and I know a lot about NASCAR.
What are you talking about?
Well, we do research, we do study, we learn. I do. I watch Indy 500 usually every year. I used to watch it with my parents every year. I used to live in Indianapolis. I've been in the Indy 500, fun racing event. Talk about NASCAR, even though Indy and NASCAR are different. We're going to talk about Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Yes.
Talking about zombies. In an impromptu Twitter interview. What did you talk about that interview a little bit, Michael?
It's funny. So it was just a little random like Twitter Q&A he was having with fans, and someone asked him about like surviving a zombie apocalypse, and he basically said he'd go to Key West, blow up TNT, that 7-mile bridge, and just party. And that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody, all you out there at the stream.tv, we have an after show for The Walking Dead. That show is kind of depressing. That's not, I mean, Rick and all those people out there, they're struggling. The zombies, it's not a world you want to live in.
There's no partying.
I'm with Dale Earnhardt Jr. I agree with him. I wouldn't mind going down to Key West. If I'm going to go out, I'd rather just go out partying. I'm not going to go out getting torn apart by zombies.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, my goodness.
Find yourself a nice island and just live out the rest of your day.
The rest of Dale Earnhardt Jr. I like Dale Earnhardt Jr. I'm going to start paying more attention to him on the NASCAR. Hope he's doing well in the points. We'll talk about our preference. For as limited knowledge we have on the subject about NASCAR versus Indy versus Formula One racing, if you were going to sit down, if you wanted to go to a venue, what would you prefer? Would you like to go to Europe and watch some Formula Ones? I'd say in Indy, maybe go to Indy 500, or maybe go to, we just had a race out here for NASCAR in Fontana.
I'd have to go Formula One, man. I want to go overseas. I want to go to some of those beautiful locales, those exotic locales where they race. Those guys are married to like beautiful models.
All the Formula One guys they're all supermodels. Like every time we see a girl, it's a supermodel. I'm like, where do you get these girls? Like, where do they come from? Like, I mean, we talk about all of our sports. We got football and basketball. Man, Formula One is where it's at. Every time we look at the Forbes top sports winners, there's always one or two Formula One races. Those guys are making bank.
Yeah.
They're making bank. They're getting paid.
Money. Those cars are so expensive. We were just talking about that. It's like roughly, what was it, like $500 million?
That's not unheard of for a budget. Indy cars, doing our research here, Indy cars are a little more. They go on oval tracks. You watch the Indy 500, so some of their top speeds seem higher. But when you look at Formula One racing, they have their aerodynamics are different. They're doing more twists and turns. Ron Howard made a film recently called Rush with Thor. Chris Hemsworth himself. Thor was in it, doing his thing, racing. And that, if you want to know more about Formula One racing, check out that movie Rush by Ron Howard. It's pretty good. So the possibility though about this sport is Formula One may have a race in 2017 coming to Austin, Texas, I believe.
Yeah.
So perhaps if Formula One comes to Austin, Texas, more Americans will pay attention because right now it's kind of like one of those things like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Much like you and I both are huge soccer fans.
Yeah.
British Premier League isn't thought of much, but now that MLS is here, now that America did well in the World Cup.
Yeah. Some of those
soccer's getting a little more
coming
attention.
over to the MLS. Yeah.
A little more attention. So hopefully we'll get some more respect. Got it done. Got it in.
Another day.
That was our show for today here on the stream.tv. Be sure to send us your thoughts and questions. I'd like to respond to some of your Twitter questions here at hashtag 3MW here on the stream.tv. I'm David Griffin. You can find me on Twitter at GriffinDE.
And I'm Michael Medina. You can also find me on Twitter at Mr. Michael Alexis. And you can also find David and myself on the beautiful, amazing Aero After Show, also here on the stream.tv.
Yes, and coming on right now, or next is going to be Last Night On. Be sure to check that out. And we'll be back tomorrow to talk to you about some more sports on 3 Minute Warning.